So let's take a look at how you can install Dart language on Windows. So first thing, go to dart.dev, then at the top click on get Dart. Now here you have options to choose for your operating system. In our case it's Windows. So what we'll do is, instead of going through chocolate install, we will download the SDK, right? So there are options. Download the SDK as a zip file. Okay, here you can see for Windows 64-bit there is this zip option. Once you extract this zip, right, it will look something like this. Now let's go to the bin folder, copy this address up to this bin folder, copy address as text, then environment variables. In Windows you have to check for system variables of environment variables and go for path, click edit and paste your path to Dart here. You have to press new first and then paste that address, right? And after that, to verify whether you have Dart installed or not, simply open your command prompt or terminal, and here let's type in Dart /version, and here see it returns with the version number. So if you can see this, that means you have installed Dart on Windows. Okay, so next thing we are going to do is create Dart file by clicking on new file. Make sure to save this file as .dart. So let's check for extension .dart and let's name this program example, right? So save it, and here we are going to type in void main. So void main is the first function that is executed whenever Dart program is executing. So let's say if I use print statement, it should output this particular word on screen. So we have saved example.dart. To run this, what we will do is we'll open terminal. You can also open one from view and terminal. That should open the terminal within Visual Studio Code. So what I will do is, instead I will go for external one, and here I will go to D drive, and here I will type in Dart example.dart, and it should return you with the print statement over there. You can see this is the print statement. So think of it as hello world program within Dart. Okay, now that we have executed the first example, next thing we can do is we can execute the various variables. So in case of Dart, we just have to use keyword var, and then let's say if I want to create a string, or I want to, let's say, type a word, right? I don't have to specifically mention string or something. I can go with something like name. That should do. You don't have to explicitly mention that. So let's say if I use number, right, this is more than sufficient. Also, let's say if I use float, something like 4.75, right, and then let's say if I create an array, right, within this I add in 1, 2 and 3. Okay, now if I want to execute this, before that let's just print it out. Let me just copy the function. Right here, let's add in number, then float and array. Right, can also specify one of the element within the array with numbers, so 0, 1, 2. I can specify that, or keep it as is. Right, so let's open command prompt and let's execute dot example dot, and here you see it outputs our different variables like string, then our number which is integer, float and array. So you get the idea how to declare variables of various types within Dart. Okay, now let's take a look at if else condition in Dart. So let's say if I have a number, let's put it 5 as value, and if I want to check whether this number is bigger than a specific set of numbers, so what I will do is I will use if keyword and then check whether this number is greater than, let's say, 8. As we know, it is not bigger than 8. So if it turns the number is big, otherwise we will use else statement that prints number is small. Right, also there is else if, and we can also add conditions, but for now let's go with simple. If I execute this dot example dot, as you can see, it returns with number is small, which is true. So this is simple if else condition that you can try it on Dart. Now let's take a look at how you can create while loop in Dart. So to do that, what we'll do is we will create one variable named number, assign it value of 6, and then within while loop let's try and see if our number reaches to 1. Right, so when we run our loop, it should output number, right, and it should also decrease the value of number, and it should print out with each iteration till it becomes 1. Right, so let's see if it works. So here we will type in dot example dot, and here see it goes from 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 up to 1 and prints that out. So basically your loop will run as long as this condition is in effect. So make sure you choose the condition the right way, otherwise some of the time what happens is such loops go out of control and run in infinite loop. Okay, so this was while loop. Let's take a look at for loop, and for that we will take a look at one of the example to counting down from month number 1 to 12. So basically when we create a for loop, we require condition, let's say a starting point, so integer month, let's say from 1, then we have to set a limit for that, so equals to 12, right, then we also have to increment it or decrement based on your condition, right, so it should start from 1, goes up to 12, and it should increment with each iteration. Now what we will do is simply output month, right, so this was for incremental condition. If we set a condition and try to decrement it, that should also work. So if we start from month 12, it should go to 1 and decrement, that also should work, right. So this is one of the typical for loop. There is also another option when we are output items like, let's say, list items or let's say array items. That is also possible with 4, but that would be another case. So for this case, let's print this out. So dart example.dart. So here you see it will output from all the way from 1 to 12. So this is one example of form. Okay, so let's take a look at how you can create switch case in Dart. So first thing, we'll create an option variable. So option variable, let's set it value of, let's say, A. Right now I want my case to iterate through this, so I will use switch keyword and then give it an option. Now inside this, what we will do is we will go through few of the options such as case A. So if case A exists, what we will do is we will print simply this is A, right? And outside this case we will add break because we want to exit out of this immediately. There is also case B, right? So case B, and I want to give it option this is B in print, right? So finally we also want it to break if it turns out to be true, and also one more default case, if none of the options are available we will be able to print invalid. Let me properly close this, then let's add break. Right now what we can do is let's run this and see if it works. So dart example.dart, and it should show you the option A. So what if I change this to C? It should show me invalid, right? So let's run this again and it shows you invalid. So you get the idea how to use switch case for iterating through your limited set of options and immediately break out of that particular cases when those cases turn out to be true. Okay, so let's take a look at do while loop. So just like while loop, here you have to run this particular loop for set condition. So let's say with example we can check this. So variable is 10, and what if I want to decrement this particular variable's value over a period of time? So what I will do is I will let do loop with keyword do and print out the value of n, then I will try to decrement it, right? But we have to set a condition up to what point it should decrement. So within while we will add n is greater or equals to 0 and then use this semicolon, right? Now if we run this with dart example.dart, it should start to decrement from 10 all the way to 0, right? So just like while loop, it works on the basis of a condition and it will loop a particular thing up to that condition. So it will run at least once. That's the difference between the while and do while loop. Okay, so let's take a look at how you can create a list in Dart language. So there are two ways you can create your list, which is fixed or growable. So let's see how you can create a list that grows. So what you can do is you can type in final and then let's say fruits, or we can simply go with final letter list, and here we'll have a string and within which we are going to add, let's say, A, then B, and so on, right? So now if we want to iterate through this, what we can do is let's say string st in letter list, and here what we'll do is print st, so it should iterate through all the list items, right? So if we execute dot example dot, hopefully what we have done so far is correct. Okay, so yeah, should be comma instead of dot, and here you see our list items are iterated. Now instead of string, you can also replace this with integer. Then here you have to type in integer to iterate through this. And also one more thing, letter list dot remove. If we choose to remove, let's say, item through 0, 1, 2, 3, we could do that, right? So let's see here, if I want to remove D and then iterate through the list, let's see if it works. And as you can see, it does work. Apart from that, we can also do a few more operations, like find out the length of list, right? And we can print this out, in fact, right? So if we run this, okay, so I missed the semicolon. So there is that problem. Okay, print letter list length. Okay, so length is not the function. That's another error. So let's clear that up. And there you go. The total length is 4, and also included the last letter D. Okay, because we have removed the removal function, so it has managed to iterate through entire list as well. So this is the Dart's list collection. So let's take a look at how you can use set collection in Dart. To do set, type in keyword set. Let's say I want a catalog of few numbers, so let's say new set. Now here, do note that set contains the unique values. So if I type in catalog dot add, and let's change few values, so 40, right, and again 20. So let me try and repeat this so that it should throw an error to show you that it does contain unique values. So to iterate through, we can use for and then variable, let's say number in catalog, right? And here we will simply output the number. Now considering we need unique values, so if we run this, so dot example dot dart, it should show you only the unique values, so 20, 30, 40. So instead of throwing the error, it just managed to only add these 3 values, and it discarded that. So if I change this and execute again, it should update with new value. And as you can see, it has updated the set. Similarly, let's see if we can remove 60, right? Hopefully it has that function. And as you can see, it has removed 60 from the set. So add, remove are 2 methods that you can work with, and also use for loop to iterate through that set. So just one thing to note here is it only contains the unique value, be it integer or anything, right? So this was set collection. Okay, so let's take a look at maps collection in Dart. So first thing that we will do is we will create a variable. Let's name this MP, and let's create new map for this particular variable. Now MP should contain key value pair, right? So basically your maps are mapping key and its respective value. So let's say this is key 1, and if I just use its value 1, right? So we will try to add multiple of those, right? So we'll just change key 2, key 3, key 4, and respectively 2, 3, 4, right? Now if I print this, it should output me the key value pair, right? So let's clear previous example and dot dot example dot dot, and here you see it has managed to output the key 1, 2, 3 and 4 in our output. So basically maps is about giving a pair of values. So like you have catalog of data and you want to pair it, in such case you can use. So now let's take a look at how we can create functions in Dart. So let's say if I create a function, we make use of keyword void when we are not returning anything, right? So similarly, if I want to create a new function, I will use simple name of that function, and then I will just use this bracket here, and then I will output something, let's say, right? So once we output our name, we have function created. Now we have to call it from our void main function, right? So if I call for test, it should output this particular print statement. So let's open terminal, and here let's type in dot example dot dot. Here you see the print statement here. Now the next thing we will see is adding some parameters to the function. So let's say if I have a function that takes one integer number and string st, right? And what if I collect both of them and print it out, right? So print num print st, right? And from our main function I will just pass down those values. So let's say test says 20 number and my name, right? So let's see if it prints out these two values, right? So if we go to our command prompt or terminal, type in dot example dot dot, here you see those parameters are returned. So we have seen how to create a function and how to call it from void main. Also we have created one function that takes parameters and we pass those parameters within our main function and return the output. So let's take a look at how you can create classes in Dart. So what we'll do is we'll create one class named test, right? So for test we will also create one string. Let's have this string st and let it say something like this, right? Now I want to call this string from another function, so I will create one function. Let's name this demo, and all of this is happening within our class test. So we'll be calling this particular string from this function, and then what we will do is we will call one of the tests object from our void main, right? So test and ts equals to new test. So we created the object. Now ts calls for demo, right? And it should output this particular string. So let's see if that works. So if we open terminal and execute this code, okay, so the class not found error is there. So what I will do is I will clear this, then go for simple class, and let's see if it finds out. Now let's run this again, dot example dot dot, and as you can see it managed to call our particular string. So the issue was keyword. So the C was uppercase. I turned that into lowercase and it managed to call that particular string. So you get the idea how to create a class, how to call one of the methods within the class by creating class object and then calling for that particular method. Okay, so what we are going to see is how we can implement an interface and how to extend that particular interface. So for that, let's create interface, name it class paper, right? Then inside this we have one demo function, and let's say within print statement I'm going to say this is paper interface, right? So instead of class, let me type in interface. Now if I want to extend this, I will create a class, let's see notebook implements paper, right? And when I type in void demo and print a particular statement, this is notebook, right? So basically what it will do is it will output this particular statement when called instead of this, right? So let's create notebook nv equals to new notebook, right? So we created an object. Now next thing, when we call nv.demo, it should output this is notebook statement. So we managed to implement this particular paper class, called its demo function and extended it with our own statement. Instead of the interface, it should say this is now a notebook. So we execute it and here you see it says this is notebook. So we managed to implement this particular interface in Dart. So let's take a look at try, catch and on for Dart. So basically whenever you wish to catch a particular set of errors, then you make use of try catch blocks. Let's say for some of the code like connecting to database or doing file handling or handling some of the synchronous operations that are the places where you get to catch certain set of errors. So for that we use try catch block, or there is also one more thing which is on. So we will take a look at one of them. So let's say if I create integer, let's name this 2, then we create integer y, give it value of 2, right? Then integer number, which would be under discussion here. So basically our number should be holding x hyphen divided by y. So this should result in some sort of error, right? Because we are practically dividing by 0, so it should lead to some sort of error. So when we use catch to catch this error, right? So let's say instead of x by y, it should flag an error, right? And if I print that particular error, right, so it should show me divide by 0 type of exception needs to be there, right? So let's execute this and find out. Okay, now let's run this code by typing in dart example.dart, and here you see integer division by 0 exception, right? So let's take a look at how you can create a new file in Dart. So first thing we do is we import dart.io, right? And after that what we will do is we will simply call for new keyword, then file, and let's say the file says start.txt, right? And then we will have to also call for create method that recursive set to true, right? So it will create this file, okay, and it should be available in same directory to that of example.dart, right? So we will try and run this and see if it works. So example.dart, right? So everything compiled correctly. So let's take a look at directory, and here as you can see there is a .txt. So the file is created. Now let's clear this again. Now next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write something to this, right? So for that we'll have to do a few things like changing things, okay? So first thing that needs to be changed is using future, right? And then using async, because we are going to be using await, so we'll have to make use of async for that, right? So variable, let's see my file, and then call for file, and then the file has to be down.txt because that's the one we are editing and writing some content into. So variable st, which contains our string, calls for this my file that open writes our file, right? And here we have to call for write method, right? And then let's pass something, okay? Now after that what it will do is it will call await and then flush the rest. Then await also closes the file, right? Okay, now if we compile this, hopefully there are no issues. So right, so okay, so there are no issues. Now what we will do is we have created a file, written something on this file. Now we will try to read this and see whether it outputs this particular line, right? So let me get rid of this. Now we'll be keeping this future keyword and async as is because we are going to make use of await again. So for that we will be needing that. So my file equals to file, and then which file it is, .txt, right? So we have file added into this variable. Now next thing, variable st, right? Then st should call await keyword my file dot read as string, right? And then finally print st, right? So once we go through that, we can see if we can execute this and output something out of this. And as you can see here, we just managed to output the content of that file, right? Now we created a file, we managed to write on it, we also read the contents of it. Now how we can get to delete this file, right? So to do that, we don't have to do much. We'll just have to get rid of async now because we are not using asynchronous code. So we'll just keep our void main as is, or in fact we can keep only main if we want. Then new file, and then we have to type in .txt, then call for deletion. So delete, and the recursive should be there, right? So that we can verify if it's really deleted or not, right? Now if I run this, it should delete the file, so we can verify that. So type in dart.example.dart and code works. Let's run dir, and here you see dart.txt is gone. So you get the idea how to create a file, how to write to file, how to read that file, and finally how you can delete that file.